On a cold January afternoon in Boston, a wave taller than a two-story building came roaring down a city street. It moved faster than you could run. It swallowed horses whole. It crushed buildings like they were made of paper. It killed 21 people and injured 150 more. And here's the part that sounds like a bad joke until you realize it's true. The wave was made of molasses. Yes, the sticky, sweet stuff you put on pancakes. Killed people. It moved at 35 miles an hour. And for over a century, nobody could fully explain why it happened the way it did. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand how a giant tank of syrup became one of the strangest and most disturbing disasters in American history, and how the real villain of this story wasn't the molasses at all. Let's rewind to Boston's North End, January 15th, 1919. The North End of Boston in 1919 was loud, crowded, and mostly working class. Italian immigrant families packed into tenement buildings, kids playing stickball in the streets, dock workers hauling freight all day. And right in the middle of this neighborhood stood something that looked completely out of place. A massive steel tank, 50 feet tall, 90 feet wide. It belonged to the Purity Distilling Company, a subsidiary of United States Industrial Alcohol. Inside that tank sat over 2 million gallons of raw molasses. Now, you might think molasses is just a breakfast condiment. In 1919, it was something far more valuable. Molasses fermented into ethanol, and ethanol made industrial alcohol, the key ingredient for munitions. World War I had just ended 2 months earlier, but the demand hadn't disappeared. This molasses was destined to become explosives. So this tank wasn't some quaint sugar house. It was a rushed wartime industrial asset. And that word, rushed, is going to matter a lot in a few minutes. Here's the first unsettling detail. When the tank was built back in 1915, the company skipped basic safety testing. No structural engineer signed off on the design. The man overseeing construction couldn't even read blueprints. Instead of testing the tank properly, filling it slowly with water to check for leaks, they filled it with about 6 inches of molasses and called it good. And almost immediately, the tank leaked. Rusty streaks ran down the sides. Neighborhood kids would show up with buckets and spoons to scrape sweet syrup straight off the steel, like it was a free candy store. Instead of investigating the leaks, the company did something almost comedically negligent. They painted the tank brown, so the leaks would be less noticeable. That's it. That was the fix. For 4 years, this ticking time bomb sat there, groaning, leaking, and it was unusually warm for January, around 40 degrees Fahrenheit. A temperature swing that, as you'll see, was not a coincidence. Just 2 days earlier, a fresh molasses shipment had arrived from Puerto Rico and been pumped into the tank, topping it off almost to capacity. The steel was under more pressure than it had ever experienced. At around 12:30 in the afternoon, workers on their lunch break heard a sound like machine gun fire, rivets popping loose one after another, shooting across the street like bullets. Then the tank steel walls simply gave way. 2.3 million gallons of molasses erupted outward all at once. Witnesses described a wall of dark liquid, 25 feet high at its peak, moving down Commercial Street at an estimated speed of 35 miles per hour. Let that sink in. Molasses, something you'd assume oozes slowly, hit these streets faster than a car going through a school zone. Why so fast? Because at the moment of collapse, the sheer volume and weight of the liquid behaved less like syrup and more like a tidal wave. It was only in the following minutes, as it spread and cooled, that it thickened into the slow, suffocating substance we associate with molasses. That timing was the cruelest part of the disaster. The wave lifted a freight train car off its tracks. It knocked a firehouse clean off its foundation, collapsing it and trapping firefighters inside. It swept horses off their feet, crushed delivery wagons, and tore through the support beams of the elevated railway. People caught in the open didn't have a chance to run. The wave moved faster than they could sprint, and once it caught them, it did something almost uniquely horrifying. It didn't just knock them down. It engulfed them, and as it slowed and thickened, it trapped them in place like flies in amber. Survivors described the substance as being almost impossible to move through, like wading through wet cement that was also trying to drown you. Rescue workers arrived to find a landscape that looked like something out of a nightmare. Buildings reduced to splinters, debris embedded in solidifying syrup, and among it all, the faint outlines of people and animals, barely visible, coated head to toe in brown. It took rescue crews and medical examiners 4 months to recover all the victims. Some bodies were so thoroughly coated in hardened molasses they were initially unrecognizable, and Boston Harbor itself turned brown. Locals claimed that on hot summer days for decades afterward, you could still catch the faint smell of molasses drifting through the North End. In the aftermath, United States Industrial Alcohol did what large companies accused of causing disaster tend to do. They looked for someone else to blame. Their official explanation? Anarchists, Italian anarchist bombers, they claimed, had planted a device that destroyed the tank. This wasn't a random accusation. 1919 was the height of the first Red Scare, and Italian anarchist groups genuinely had been carrying out bombings elsewhere in the country that same year, including one on the doorstep of the U.S. Attorney General just months later. It was a convenient story. Blame outside agitators, not shoddy engineering. But the resulting lawsuit, one of the largest class action suits in Massachusetts history at that point, with over 100 plaintiffs, forced something the company never wanted: real scientific and structural analysis. Independent engineers hired by the court discovered the truth, piece by piece. The steel used to build the tank was too thin, about half the thickness it should have been for a structure of that size. The company had also never done basic calculations for how liquid pressure increases toward the bottom of a tall tank. And crucially, the steel itself was found to be low in manganese, making it dangerously brittle in cold temperatures. A phenomenon investigators only partially understood at the time, but which we now recognize clearly. Certain steels undergo a ductile to brittle transition, becoming far weaker and prone to fracture as temperatures swing. Which brings us back to that oddly warm January day. The tank had been filled with warm molasses shipped from the Caribbean just 2 days before the collapse. That warm liquid interacting with a cold structure, combined with unusually mild air temperatures that afternoon, likely triggered rapid fermentation inside the tank. Fermentation produces carbon dioxide gas, meaning the tank wasn't just holding liquid weight, it was quietly building internal pressure as well. A tank that was already too thin, already leaking for years, already groaning under stress, now facing a spike in both temperature-driven brittleness and fermentation-driven pressure. It wasn't a bomb. It wasn't sabotage. It was a company that built something dangerous, watched it leak for 4 years, painted over the warning signs, literally, and gambled that nothing would go wrong. In 1925, the court ruled against the company. It was ordered to pay damages at the time of about $600,000, the equivalent of well over $10 million today. And here's the twist that makes this story matter far beyond Boston. The Great Molasses Flood became one of the first major disasters in American history where courts required detailed structural engineering analysis as legal evidence. It's still cited today in engineering ethics courses as a case study in why proper testing, sign-offs, and safety standards exist in the first place. So here's where it gets almost eerie. Go to that spot in Boston's North End today, and you'll find a park. Langone Park with a baseball diamond and playground. Only a small plaque near the entrance tells you that thousands of tons of molasses once buried this exact ground in death. For years, local legend insisted that on humid summer afternoons, the air near the harbor still carries a faint sweetness. An old wives' tale, most historians say, but one that refuses to die, passed down through generations of North End families. There's something genuinely unsettling about a disaster this strange. We're wired to fear fire, explosions, collapsing buildings, sudden, violent, obviously dangerous things. But molasses? Something sweet, slow, harmless looking? The idea that something so ordinary could become a killing wave breaks our intuitive sense of what's dangerous in the world. And maybe that's the real, lasting mystery of this story. Not who done it, we know who did it. It's the unsettling reminder that catastrophe doesn't always look like catastrophe until it's already too late to run. 21 people never made it home that afternoon in January 1919, killed by a substance nobody thought to fear. A tank that groaned for 4 years, painted over instead of fixed, finally gave way and rewrote the rules of engineering accountability in America. The next time you drizzle molasses on your pancakes, maybe give it a little more respect than you used to. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of history's strangest disasters, let me know in the comments and tell me which bizarre historical event you want covered next. I read every single one. Until next time, stay curious.